Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming. It's great to see a big crowd out here today on a beautiful Sunday. We are very thankful for you all to be here. We're thankful for you to help us be here to remember and pay our respects to those victims from the events of September 11th, 2001. On this 15th anniversary, we are also here today to dedicate this 9/11 memorial site. This project started about 6 years ago when we received a piece of steel from the World Trade Center. I had requested it through a program through the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. Once we had the artifact, we were troubled on how we could actually display the item and display it properly to pay the utmost respect to those victims. About a year ago, this memorial site began to take shape, and through many, many meetings and lots of hard work by many, many people, we are here today to unveil it. I was feeling very proud of our work on this project. In fact, the other day I was standing around with some of our firefighters and some other people that were here at the station, and I was patting ourselves on the back pretty well. We worked very, very hard. All of the work you see here today was done by our firefighters. Donations from many of our local companies and people that wish to be part of this put a lot of effort into this project. And on one particular Sunday, about half the department was here and spent about 6 or 7 hours in about 90-degree heat doing all of the landscaping. And I was feeling really, really proud of that, and I felt really good about us. Until last night, I was watching some of the 9/11 history on the History Channel last night, and it put it into perspective. I was a little humbled and brought back to reality about what hard work is. The workers at Ground Zero worked for 18 days nonstop, around the clock, looking for survivors in that rubble. 18 days. They didn't find any survivors after the second morning. That hard work, dedication, and sacrifice is part of what we are here to honor today. So I would invite you all at this time, we are going to say the Pledge of Allegiance, and then that will be followed by the national anthem. So our flag is over to this side, to the east side of the site. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will now turn the mic over to our city manager for the city of Fenton, Lynn Martin. Thank you, Chief.
First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out today. It's a beautiful day. Fortunately, we have great weather to be able to do this dedication today. I also want to thank the Chief Kierendorf and the fire officers and firefighters for the department for the work that they've done in preparing the memorial that's before us today. I haven't yet seen it. I've seen pictures of it, and I think you'll all be very proud, as I think they should be. It's a great tribute to those who lost their lives on 9/11, the ones at the World Trade Center, Flight 93 that ended up in Shakespeare, Pennsylvania, and excuse me, at the Pentagon. 9/11 is one of those dates I think that we all who were alive at the time will remember throughout the rest of our lives. A few days like that we recall throughout history. That's one of the dates that I always will remember. I happen to be old enough to remember the Kennedy assassination. That's another one that I will always remember that impacted our country greatly. This particular event was actually an attack on our values and the morals that we have in our country. And the people who lost their lives were, some of them were everyday citizens like you and me, and some of them were first responders, firefighters, police officers, EMS personnel, who gave their life running into the problem, not running away from it. And that's the kind of action that our firefighters, police officers, and EMS personnel do on a daily basis. They never run from a problem, they run to it. And I want to thank them for that today. And I want to also thank the ones that lost their lives on 9/11. When I think of 9/11, I remember the day very well, as I said earlier. And one of the things that I remember is a phone call that I received from my mother that day telling me that we were under attack. I wasn't really aware of it at the time until she called. And so that's a conversation that I'll remember probably the rest of my life. A few days later, my mother also called me to let me know that one of the passengers on Flight 93 was someone that we knew. I had gone to church with Todd Beamer when he was a little boy. He was born in Flint, Michigan in 1968 and lived in Flushing. And we had gone to church with them for several years before they moved out of the area. And I kind of lost track of him since then, but I'll always remember him as a little boy. And that's the image that came to my mind when I heard about him being involved in that tragedy. As you will remember, he's one of the ones that was on the flight and was on the telephone with the operator during the flight and said the Lord's Prayer with her, and also recited the 23rd Psalms, and is now made 2 words famous, "Let's roll." So those are my memories of 9/11. I'm sure that date has a memory for everyone that's here today. But I'm very proud of the work that's been done by our firefighters in preparing this memorial. As you'll see, it's dedicated to the firefighters and the victims that lost their lives at the World Trade Center. It's also dedicated to those who lost their lives at the Pentagon, and it's also dedicated to the ones who lost their lives in Flight 93. They're all memorialized on the marker, and I'm very proud that you folks had something to do with it. You did a great job, and I really appreciate it. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the job that you do every day. Introduce the mayor, Bob, or now I'd like to introduce our mayor, Sue Osborne, who's going to make some remarks regarding the memorial.
Thank you. As I hobble up here, I'm just recovering from an automobile accident, so it's a little bit tricky. I also have to say, I think I was watching the memorials on TV last night. Everybody remembers what they were doing that day. And I can tell you, I was out at my son's house. My granddaughter was 4 months old. And I'd always run out there at least once a day to try to give her a bottle. And I'd talk to her, and she was one of the only people that would smile back to me no matter what I said to her. And I'd tickle her feet, and she'd be just a bundle of joy. It came over on the television that there had been an attack and my heart just sank. Her father was in Canada purchasing automobiles. He was at the time buying autos in Canada and transporting them back to the Flint Auto Auction. And it was 3 days before we heard from him because there was just no way to get a hold of him. Finally, when we found out everything was okay, it was such a relief. But as I sat there, I thought, I'm holding this child. How many other people that are involved in this tragedy will never hold their grandchild or their child again? It was just a devastating attack, and something we'll never ever forget. But I'm so proud of our fire department getting this piece of steel from the towers and bringing it here, doing this memorial for us. I have to tell you, our firefighters are the best. They dedicate themselves to everyone in this community and the surrounding area. It doesn't matter, they would give their lives for you. And I think that everybody here today should at least walk up and tell them thank you and tell them how much you honor them, because they are the best, along with our police department. We wouldn't have the community we have today without them. So I just thank everyone for being here. And I'm so glad this is here because it's close to the library. People will look at it, you know, probably on a daily basis if you go to the library very often. And it brings back memories of 9/11, but also memories of the wonderful life we have because of it. So thank you very much for coming today. And I also wanted to introduce our Mayor Pro Tem is here, Pat Lockwood, Scott Grossmeyer, Nancy Draves, and Cherie Smith. I'm not sure if I missed anyone, I'm sorry. And Joe Graves is here also. So thank you very much. So proud of this.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Now offering some thoughts and a prayer, Pastor Jeff Jaggers from the Fenton United Methodist Church.
Thank you, Chief. This memorial serves, as every memorial does, as a reminder. We may look at it in the coming days and remember, as Lynn and Sue and all of us, we may remember where we were when we heard the news that day, saw the events unfold on live television. We may remember the terrible images of destruction and fear and helplessness. We may look at this memorial and remember the victims in the towers and the victims in the Pentagon, the victims on Flight 93, the victims on the ground, and the terrorists who effected this evil. But today I want to ask you to join me in a different kind of remembering, to let this memorial remind us of the human cost of hate and prejudice. And let us resolve to look at this memorial and never to be party to hate and racism or the spreading of them. Indeed, let us look at this memorial and resolve to be proactive in the living and spreading of grace and compassion and understanding, lest we come here in another 15 years and have learned nothing, have changed nothing. I ask you today to join me in looking at this memorial and resolving to live into the bravery and selflessness that was exemplified in the actions of the police and the firefighters and the EMTs and all of those other first responders who ran towards the danger with no regard for their own well-being to save the lives of people they didn't even know. I'm not asking you to forget the victims, but to make this tragedy and this memorial a place of inspiration rather than a place of grief. To transform this memorial into a new way of living together rather than a memorial to hate or prejudice or fear or destruction. Let this be a place that inspires us toward bravery. Let this place motivate us to compassion. Let this memorial encourage us to try to understand our neighbor. Let this memorial be a place that inspires us to be our best selves and to bring out the best selves in others. Let's pray. Compassionate God, whose loving care extends to all the world, we remember this day your children of many nations and many faiths, whose lives were cut short by the fierce flames of anger and hatred. Console those who continue to suffer and grieve, and give them comfort and hope as they look to the future. Out of the ashes of that tragedy that changed this country 15 years ago, give us the grace to examine ourselves, our prejudices, our fears, our relationships with those who perceive us as the enemy. Breathe into us a new determination to end hate and the bent toward violence that is born of ignorance and fear, and give us grace to follow the example of those who gave their lives in service to others, that those who see us as indifferent or narcissistic may be put to shame. Bless this memorial that has been made somehow sacred by the blood of innocent victims and brave responders and the tears of their families, and use it to inspire us to create bonds of peace, love, and understanding, that we might truly be a nation that lives in the ways that you have revealed to us. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. At this time, I'd like to introduce our committee that worked on this project from the fire department, our 9/11 Memorial Committee. I could have them make their way up to the middle area. First is Deputy Chief Ed Hadfield, Lieutenant Casey Gilbert, Lieutenant Nick Will, Firefighter Nick Schultz, and Lieutenant Jeff Shook. We are going to unveil our memorial here in just a second, but I want to take a quick moment and explain a little bit about the site. And you'll see there's a couple signs at each end of the memorial that explain it. There are three aspects to this memorial, each representing the three areas that were affected by the attacks of 9/11. To my left over here towards the flags is the walkway, which is brown aggregate concrete and tall grasses along its side, which represent the fields of Pennsylvania where Flight 93 crashed. In the center of the memorial is the shape of the Pentagon, which obviously represents the Pentagon in Washington. And then underneath our drapery here is representative of the Twin Towers of New York City. Inside one of these two stones that we have here that we're going to unveil is a piece of steel artifact from those towers. Once our program concludes today, I would invite you all and encourage you all to come up close to it and see both the sides, as there are representations on both sides of the stones. They have turned out beautifully, and the site is here for everyone to see, reflect, remember, and honor these, or those that were lost. If we could, committee, if you could please have it ready.